My name is Sophia Ruthel, and I'm 64 years old. If you think that makes me weak, defenseless, or invisible, you're about to learn just how wrong you can be. Some people mistake age for fragility. Those people have never met a woman who's been pushed too far by the very children she sacrificed everything to raise. I sat in my study on the evening of October 15th, my long silver hair perfectly styled despite spending the day alone, my grandmother's pearl necklace catching the light from the crystal chandelier. The house, my mansion, really felt larger than usual that night. 37 rooms, and not a single soul had crossed the threshold to wish me a happy birthday. Not one of my 3 children. Not one of their spouses. Not even a phone call. My late husband Richard had left me an estate worth $47 million when he passed 5 years ago. Real estate properties, investment portfolios, business interests. More wealth than most people could spend in 10 lifetimes. For years, I'd used this fortune to support my children's comfortable lifestyles, paying for their homes, their cars, their children's private school tuitions, their every want and need. I'd believed this generosity would ensure their love and respect. I'd been naive. I picked up my phone and opened our family WhatsApp group, the one I'd created years ago to keep everyone connected. The last message was from 2 weeks prior, my youngest daughter Emily asking if I could cover her mortgage payment because Peter's business is going through a rough patch. I'd transferred the money immediately, as I always did. With trembling fingers, I typed a simple message. I'm feeling quite sad tonight. I know everyone is busy, but no one remembered it was my birthday today. I would have loved just a simple, happy birthday from my children. I'm sorry if this sounds selfish, but sometimes I feel very alone. I stared at the message for 10 minutes before hitting send. My heart pounded as I watched the read receipts appear. Kathy had seen it. David had seen it. Emily had seen it. Mark, Kathy's husband, had seen it. Susan, David's wife, had seen it. Peter, Emily's husband, had seen it. The typing indicator appeared under Kathy's name. My eldest daughter, 42 years old, the one I'd held in my arms when she took her first breath, was responding. Mom, we are all grown now. We need space from you. Please do not contact us anymore. This guilt tripping is manipulative and we're tired of it. The words hit me like a physical blow. But what came next destroyed something fundamental inside me. Mark's reaction appeared under the message, a thumbs-up emoji. He'd liked it. My son-in-law had publicly endorsed my daughter's cruelty. Then David chimed in. Kathy's right. You need to stop being so needy. We have our own lives. Emily, my baby, my youngest, added, maybe this is a good time for some healthy boundaries. We'll reach out when we're ready. I sat in that chair for 3 hours, staring at those messages, reading them over and over until they were burned into my memory. My children, the ones I'd raised, educated, supported, and loved unconditionally for decades, had just told me they were tired of me, that my pain was manipulation, that my existence was an inconvenience. But here's what they didn't understand about their mother. I hadn't been begging for love in that message. I'd been conducting an experiment. I'd been testing their character, their gratitude, their basic human decency. They had failed spectacularly. As I finally rose from my chair, I caught my reflection in the antique mirror across the room. Still beautiful at 64, still elegant, still commanding. But something in my eyes had changed. The soft, maternal warmth that had defined me for over 4 decades was gone, replaced by something harder, colder, infinitely more dangerous. I walked to my desk and pulled out my leather-bound address book, the one containing contact information for every lawyer, banker, and financial advisor who managed the vast fortune that funded my children's comfortable lives. They thought I was begging for love. What I was really doing was waking up. And Sophia Ruthel, awake, was about to become their worst nightmare. Before we continue with Sophia's incredible transformation, I want to share something crucial with you. If you've ever been told you're too old to start over, let me tell you, that's a lie. Your story isn't over, and you still have chapters left to write. Our best-selling book, Reclaiming Your Peace After Pain, is filled with simple, powerful steps to help you heal, rebuild, and fall in love with life again. Click the link in the description box and start your new beginning today. Because what Sophia does next will prove that underestimating a woman with nothing left to lose is the most expensive mistake anyone can make. The next morning, I woke before dawn and went straight to my husband's former office. Surrounded by financial documents, I began calculating exactly how dependent my children had become on my generosity. Let me paint you a picture of the fortune they'd grown so comfortable spending. Kathy lived in an $800,000 house, a house I'd bought for her and Mark as a wedding gift. Her children attended private schools at $30,000 per year each. Her credit cards, car payments, country club membership, all paid from accounts I maintained. David was worse. His real estate investments had failed 3 times, and each time I'd covered his losses. The $150,000 I'd given him last year to start fresh. The $75,000 to pay off gambling debts. The monthly allowance of $8,000 that Susan spent on designer clothes and spa treatments. Emily and Peter were more subtle, but equally dependent. Their consulting business existed only on paper. A firm that had never landed a single client, but somehow required $12,000 monthly in operating expenses that I provided. In total, I was spending approximately $200,000 per year keeping my children in the lifestyle they'd grown accustomed to. Money they'd never earned, never appreciated, and apparently never connected to their obligation to treat me with basic human decency. I opened my laptop and began making lists. Account numbers, credit card numbers, property deeds, trust fund details. Every financial artery that pumped my money into their ungrateful lives. Then I began making phone calls. "Mr. Thompson," I said when my family lawyer answered, "I need to see you today. There are changes I need to make to our family accounts." Harold Thompson had been Richard's lawyer for 25 years and mine for the 5 since Richard's death. He understood wealth and the power it carried. "Of course, Mrs. Ruthell. What kind of changes?" "The kind that will teach some very ungrateful people what gratitude actually costs." By noon, I sat in Harold's office, signing document after document. Account closures, credit card cancellations, property transfer reversals, trust fund revocations. "Mrs. Ruthell," Harold said carefully, "these changes will have immediate and dramatic effects. Are you certain this is the path you want to take?" I looked at him over my reading glasses. "Harold, yesterday was my birthday. Not one of my 3 children remembered. When I expressed my hurt, they told me they were tired of me and wanted me out of their lives. They've made their choice. What would you like to happen first?" "Everything. All at once. I want them to understand the scope of their mistake before they have time to process it. The account freezes would be effective immediately. Credit cards would be declined by evening. Mortgage payments scheduled for automatic withdrawal would be returned for insufficient funds." I drove home through the autumn afternoon, taking the long route past Kathy's neighborhood. Her BMW sat in the driveway, the BMW whose payment came out of an account that no longer existed. That evening, I prepared myself a beautiful dinner and ate slowly in my elegant dining room, surrounded by priceless art. My phone remained silent, but I knew that wouldn't last long. Tomorrow, reality would begin to dawn on my ungrateful children. Tomorrow, they would discover that the woman they dismissed as needy and manipulative was actually the foundation upon which their entire comfortable existence had been built. I raised my glass of champagne in a toast to my reflection in the dining room mirror. "Happy birthday to me," I whispered, "and happy awakening to them." I woke the next morning to my phone buzzing incessantly. 17 missed calls. 43 text messages. The family WhatsApp group showed 57 unread messages. I made my coffee, arranged fresh flowers, and took my time reading the newspaper before even glancing at my phone. Let them wait. Let them panic. Let them experience what it felt like to need something desperately and have no one respond. When I finally opened the WhatsApp group, the desperation was palpable. David. Mom. My card was declined at the grocery store. Is there a problem with the account? Susan. Mrs. Ruthell, the mortgage payment bounced and the bank is calling us. Please call me back. Emily. Mama, something's wrong with our credit cards. Can you please check with the bank? Mark. My card got declined at the gas station. What's going on? Kathy. Mom, call me now. David. Seriously, Mom, I'm at my kid's school and they're saying my payment didn't go through. This is embarrassing. Peter. The business account is frozen. We need you to call the bank immediately. Emily. Mom, please just text back and let us know you're okay. Kathy. If you don't answer your phone, I'm calling the police for a wellness check. 111 messages total. Each one more frantic than the last. Each one proving exactly what I'd suspected. They didn't actually care about me at all. They cared about my money. Not one had apologized for their cruelty. Not one acknowledged their behavior from 2 nights ago. They were only concerned about their financial crisis. Perfect. I deleted the entire WhatsApp group without responding to a single message. Then I blocked all their phone numbers. That afternoon, Helen, my housekeeper of 15 years, knocked on my study door. Mrs. Ruthell? There are several people at the front gate. Your daughter Kathy and her husband. They're quite upset. Helen was one of the few people who'd always treated me with genuine respect. She remembered my birthday every year with homemade cookies. She was more of a daughter to me than my biological children had ever been. Thank you for letting me know, Helen. Please inform them that I'm not receiving visitors today. Should I tell them when you might be available? No. If they'd like to communicate with me, they can write a letter. A handwritten letter. Perhaps that will give them time to think about what they really want to say. I watched from my upstairs window as Helen delivered the message. Kathy's face went through confusion, anger, disbelief, and finally something that might have been understanding. They stood at my gate for 20 minutes before driving away. That evening, I took down every family photograph in the house. Every picture of Kathy, David, and Emily. Every graduation, wedding, holiday photo. Every reminder of the children who'd told me they were tired of me. I carried them all to the basement, stored in labeled boxes. Not destroyed, I wasn't a monster, but removed from my daily sight. They'd asked for space from me. I was giving them space from my walls as well. The house felt different without their faces. Cleaner. More peaceful. More honest. I replaced the family photos with pictures of my travels, my gardens, my charitable work. Images of the life I'd built beyond motherhood. My phone rang that evening. Unknown number. Mrs. Ruthell? This is Susan, David's wife. I borrowed my neighbor's phone because you're not answering ours. Hello, Susan. Listen, there's been some kind of mistake with the accounts. David's cards aren't working, the mortgage payment bounced, and we can't reach you. We need you to call the bank and fix this immediately. The audacity was breathtaking. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just demands that I fix their problems. There's been no mistake, Susan. What do you mean? I mean I've closed the accounts. Permanently. You and David are adults. You can figure out how to pay your own bills. You can't do that. I absolutely can. And I absolutely have. But David depends on that money. Should have been David's responsibility from the beginning. I've been enabling your family's irresponsibility for years. That ends now. This is because of a stupid birthday message? I felt something cold settle in my chest. You ruined your lives the moment you decided my feelings didn't matter. We can apologize. You had your chance to apologize. Instead, you spent 2 days calling me only when your credit card stopped working. You only care about my money. I hung up and blocked that number too. Then I poured myself wine and sat in my living room, looking at the empty spaces where my children's photos used to hang. The room looked better without them. They'd asked for space from me. I was giving them all the space in the world. 2 weeks passed in blissful silence. I spent my days tending my garden, reading, and enjoying the peace that came with removing toxic people from your life, even when those people happened to share your DNA. Harold Thompson called with updates on the legal proceedings. The house foreclosures have been initiated, he said. Kathy's house will go into default in 30 days. David's property is on the same timeline. Emily and Peter will be evicted, since you were their lease guarantor. And the cars. Repo men will be dispatched tomorrow. All vehicles financed through accounts you guaranteed. I felt satisfaction. What about their attempts to contest this legally? Harold chuckled. They can't contest what was never legally theirs. You own those houses outright. You were simply allowing them to live there. They have no legal standing whatsoever. That afternoon, I decided to take a drive. My route happened to take me through Kathy's neighborhood. What I found was pure chaos. A moving truck sat at her driveway, and Kathy was arguing with two men in suits, bank representatives. Mark was carrying boxes to a U-Haul trailer, his face red with rage. The children sat on the front steps looking confused and frightened. I felt a momentary pang about the children, but it quickly passed. Their parents had brought this upon them through their own choices. As I drove slowly past, Kathy looked up and saw me. Her face went through relief, hope, and then bitter anger when I simply raised my hand in a small wave and continued driving. I heard her screaming behind me, but I didn't look back. Next stop was David's house. The repo truck was loading his BMW onto a flatbed trailer. Susan stood in the driveway in pajamas, crying at the driver. I pulled across the street and watched. The repo man handed Susan paperwork, got in his truck, and drove away with their car. Susan stood there for several minutes, then went inside and slammed the door. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for them. But then I remembered Susan's voice. This is because of a stupid birthday message? They'd called my pain stupid. They'd told me they were tired of me. Well, now they had space. All the space in the world. I drove home and spent the evening planning my next move. Cutting off their money was just the beginning. They'd humiliated me, dismissed me, treated me like an inconvenience. Now they were going to learn what true humiliation felt like. That night, I called my friend Margaret Wellington, who served on the board of the private school where Kathy's children were enrolled. Margaret, I need to discuss my grandchildren's tuition situation. Of course, Sophia. Is everything all right? I'll no longer be able to guarantee their tuition payments. There have been family changes that affect my financial support. Margaret had witnessed my children's casual dismissal of me at social events. I understand completely. We'll need payment for the current semester within 2 weeks, or the children will need to be withdrawn. That's very reasonable. After I hung up, I opened a bottle of champagne and raised my glass to the empty room. To consequences, I said aloud, and to the people who earn them. Tomorrow, I would take the next step in teaching my children that love couldn't be taken for granted, that respect couldn't be demanded, and that money would never again flow to people who treated me like garbage. They'd wanted space from me. I was giving them a whole new world to explore, a world where actions had consequences and their mother was no longer a desperate woman they could safely ignore. I was something far more dangerous now. I was a woman with nothing left to lose and all the power in the world to take away everything they'd taken for granted. 3 weeks after my birthday revelation, I invited Harold Thompson to my house for an afternoon that would change everything. We sat in my study, surrounded by legal documents that would reshape my legacy forever. Are you absolutely certain about this, Sophia? Harold asked, pen poised over the new will. These changes are comprehensive. I looked at the document that would erase my children from my future as completely as they'd tried to erase me from their present. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. The new will was a masterpiece of legal precision and emotional justice. My entire estate would now go to organizations and individuals who'd show me genuine kindness and respect. The Helen Retirement Fund, $5 million to ensure my loyal housekeeper could live comfortably for life. The Ruthell Scholarship Foundation, $15 million to provide college educations for children from struggling families. Children who would appreciate opportunities my own children had squandered. The Mercy General Hospital Cancer Wing, $10 million in memory of Richard. Various charities and community organizations would receive the remainder. Kathy, David, and Emily would receive exactly what they'd given me. Nothing. The document specifically states that this disinheritance is intentional and complete, Harold noted. They cannot contest it as an oversight. Good. I want there to be no confusion about my intentions. But the will was only part of my plan. I had something more immediate in mind. That evening, I hosted a dinner party. Not for my children, they were no longer welcome, but for people who'd actually treated me with dignity. Helen and her husband. The Carters, my young neighbors who always remembered my birthday. My book club friends. I'd hired a photographer, and as we sat around my dining room table laughing and sharing stories, I felt more joy than I'd experienced in years. These people appreciated my company, valued my thoughts, saw me as more than a source of financial support. During dessert, I stood to make an announcement. I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and for being the family I chose rather than the family I was born into. You've shown me what real love and respect look like. I raised my champagne glass. I also want you to know that each of you will be provided for in my will. Not because you've asked for anything, but because you've given me something my own children never could: unconditional love and genuine friendship. The room erupted in surprised thank yous. Helen started crying. Mrs. Ruthell, you don't need to do that, Rachel Carter said. We care about you because of who you are, not what you have. I know, dear. That's exactly why you deserve it. After dinner, we took family photos by the fireplace. Real family photos, with people who actually wanted to be there. The photographer captured genuine smiles, real affection, the warmth that had been missing from my biological family gatherings for years. Within a week, those photos were everywhere. Helen displayed them proudly. The Carters posted them on social media. My book club friends shared them with their families. The images found their way back to my biological children, of course. Emily was the first to call, using another borrowed phone. Mom, I saw the pictures from your dinner party. We need to talk. Hello, Emily. How could you have a family dinner without your actual family? My actual family was there. The people who love and respect me, who remember my birthday, who don't tell me they're tired of me. Those people aren't your family. We are.
No, Emily.
Family is about more than DNA. Family is about love, respect, loyalty, kindness. You stopped being my family the moment you told me you didn't want me in your lives. But in your will, people are saying you've changed your will. There it was. Not concern for my feelings, but worry about their inheritance. My will reflects my values now. It directs my resources to people who've earned them through kindness and respect. You can't leave everything to strangers. The Carters aren't strangers. They've been kinder to me in 2 years than you've been in 20. Helen isn't a stranger. She's been more of a daughter than you ever were. Emily started crying, but I felt nothing. No maternal instinct to comfort her. She'd broken something fundamental between us.
Please.
We can fix this. We can be better. You had 42 years to be better, Emily. You chose not to. Now you'll live with that choice. I hung up and blocked another number. That night, I sat in my living room looking at the new family photos on my mantelpiece. Pictures of people who appreciated me, valued me, loved me for who I was rather than what I could provide. I'd thought family was about blood. I'd been wrong. Family was about choice. And I'd finally chosen wisely. A month after my financial cutoff, my children were beginning to understand their dependence on me. But money was only one form of power I'd wielded on their behalf. It was time they learned about the others. I'd spent 40 years building relationships and accumulating influence in our community. Business owners, bank presidents, school board members, they all knew Sophia Ruthell as a woman of integrity. When I made recommendations, people listened. My children had benefited from this influence their entire lives, never realizing how many opportunities had come their way simply because they were Sophia Ruthell's family. That was about to change. David worked as a commercial real estate agent, or rather, pretended to work as one. His biggest sales had come through my connections. When I mentioned to wealthy friends that David was in real estate, they hired him out of respect for me. Without those connections, David was just another mediocre agent in an oversaturated market. I spent a morning making phone calls. "James," I said to the president of Midwest Manufacturing, "I need to let you know that David will no longer be representing the Ruthell family interests. Any future real estate decisions should go through other agents." "Of course, Sophia. Is everything all right? Family changes. I'm sure you understand." James understood. His company's future expansion plans, which had been heading toward David's desk, would now go elsewhere. I made similar calls to the law firm planning to relocate, the medical practice seeking a new building, the restaurant chain looking for retail space. One by one, I withdrew the invisible support that had been keeping David's career afloat. Mark, Kathy's husband, worked in financial services, a job he'd gotten because I'd recommended him. His client list read like a who's who of my social circle. Another round of phone calls took care of that. "Margaret," I said to my friend who'd been one of Mark's biggest clients, "I need to inform you that Mark Reed is no longer someone I'd recommend for financial management." "Oh my, has something happened?" "Let's just say I've discovered concerning aspects of his character that make me uncomfortable vouching for him." Within a week, Mark had lost 60% of his client base. The financial firm began questioning his value to the company. Emily and Peter's consulting business had never been real. It was an elaborate fiction I'd helped them maintain. The monthly consulting fees came from companies I'd quietly asked to hire them as favors to me. I called each company and explained that the consulting arrangement was no longer necessary. The consulting business died overnight. But I wasn't finished. I called Dr. Harrison, who ran the medical practice where Susan worked. "Richard, I need to discuss Susan Ruthell's employment situation." "Is there a problem, Sophia?" "Susan has been using her position to make inappropriate requests of patients, suggesting they make charitable donations to causes that benefit her personally. It's created an uncomfortable situation." This was true. Susan had been telling my friends who came to the practice about David's troubles, hinting that business recommendations would be appreciated. "I thought you should know before it becomes a larger issue." Within days, Susan was let go for unprofessional conduct. The beauty was that none of my children could trace their professional problems back to me. From their perspective, they were experiencing a string of bad luck. They had no idea that their mother was systematically dismantling the invisible network of support that had carried them their entire adult lives. Helen brought me afternoon tea as I sat in my study, reviewing my handiwork. "You seem quite pleased with yourself today, Mrs. Ruthell," she said with a knowing smile. "I'm simply ensuring that people face the natural consequences of their choices, Helen. My children wanted independence from me. I'm helping them achieve it." Helen nodded approvingly. She'd witnessed years of my children's entitled behavior. "They never appreciated what you did for them. All those doors you opened, All those opportunities you created. They thought it was just luck. Well, now they'll discover what life looks like when that luck runs out. That evening, David called from yet another borrowed phone, his voice desperate. Mom, I don't know what's happening. Everything's falling apart. My biggest clients are leaving. The firm is talking about letting me go. Susan lost her job. We can't make rent. I listened to his panic with detachment. I'm sorry to hear you're having difficulties, David. You have to help us. I know you're angry about the birthday thing, but this is insane. We're going to lose everything. You're not losing everything, David. You're discovering what you actually own versus what you thought you were entitled to. What does that even mean? It means that for 15 years, your success has been built on my relationships, my reputation, my influence. You mistook my support for your own competence. The silence was deafening. That's not true, he whispered. Isn't it? Name one major sale you made to someone who didn't know me first. Another long silence. So, you're going to let us become homeless? Let your grandchildren suffer because your feelings got hurt? After everything they'd done, he was trying to guilt me into rescuing them. My grandchildren are suffering because their parents made poor choices. You chose to treat me with cruelty. These are the consequences of those choices. We can apologize. You've had weeks to apologize, David. You're only calling because your credit cards don't work and your clients are leaving. You're not sorry for hurting me. You're sorry that hurting me had consequences. I hung up and blocked another number. The next morning, I received a visit from a process server. Kathy was suing me for financial elder abuse, claiming I was being manipulated into changing my will. I laughed when I read the papers. The daughter who told me she was tired of me was now claiming I was too mentally impaired to make my own financial decisions. I called Harold immediately. They're arguing that you lack mental capacity to manage your affairs, he said. It's desperate, but we'll need to respond formally. How do we handle this? Mental competency evaluation by a court-appointed psychiatrist. Financial audit. Character witnesses. How long will this take? 3 to 6 months. But Sophia, this is going to get ugly. They're going to air every private family matter in open court. I thought about a public trial where all their greed and cruelty would be exposed, where their financial dependence would be documented, where their treatment of me would be examined by impartial observers. Harold, I said finally, I think that sounds perfect. Let them drag this into court. Let the whole community see exactly what kind of people my children really were. They'd wanted to play hardball. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The court case gave me an unexpected gift, clarity about who my real family was. During 3 months of legal proceedings, while my biological children spent thousands trying to prove I was mentally incompetent, I discovered what genuine family love actually looked like. Helen testified on my behalf, describing my daily routines, my sharp memory, my careful management of household affairs. Mrs. Ruthell is one of the most intellectually sharp people I've ever known, she told the court. She reads 3 newspapers every morning, manages a complex investment portfolio, and remembers conversations from years ago. The idea that she lacks mental capacity is absurd. Rachel and James Carter testified about our friendship, describing thoughtful conversations we'd had about their career plans, wisdom I'd offered about buying their first home. Mrs. Ruthell has been like a grandmother to us, Rachel said, tears in her eyes. She's always there when we need advice, but never intrudes. She remembers every important date in our lives. My book club friends testified about our weekly discussions of complex literature, my ability to analyze themes and remember details from books we'd read months earlier. The court-appointed psychiatrist spent 4 hours evaluating me and concluded that I showed no signs of cognitive impairment. My decision-making capacity was completely intact. The judge dismissed Kathy's lawsuit with prejudice, noting clear evidence of adult children attempting to control their mother's finances after years of dependency, rather than legitimate concern about her mental capacity. But the most beautiful part was watching my chosen family rally around me. Helen invited me to spend Thanksgiving with her extended family. For the first time in years, I sat at a holiday table surrounded by people genuinely happy to see me, who asked about my health and listened to the answers. The Carters insisted on hosting my Christmas celebration, decorating their apartment with lights and bringing in a beautiful tree. Their children made me handmade gifts and thanked me for the presents I gave them. I had photo albums full of these celebrations now. Real smiles, genuine laughter, the warmth that comes from being valued for who you are. Meanwhile, my biological children were falling apart. The stress of their financial collapse had destroyed David and Susan's marriage. She'd filed for divorce, claiming he'd misrepresented his earning capacity. David was living in a studio apartment, working as a car salesman. Kathy and Mark had lost their house to foreclosure and were living in a cramped rental. Their children had transferred to public schools. Kathy had taken a job as a dental receptionist. Emily and Peter had moved in with Peter's parents after their eviction. Emily was working retail, while Peter delivered food. Their consulting business was a distant memory. They'd sent letters of apology, of course. Desperate attempts to repair the damage. But the letters only proved how little they understood what they'd actually broken. Emily's letter was particularly telling. "I'm sorry if we hurt your feelings on your birthday. We were stressed and didn't think about how our words would affect you. But surely family should forgive family. Can't we just move past this and get back to normal?" The letter showed no understanding that normal had been a one-sided relationship where I gave everything and received nothing. No recognition that forgiveness required genuine repentance, not just regret about consequences. I burned their letters in my fireplace and never responded. 6 months after the court case, I held a celebration dinner for my chosen family. Helen, the Carters, my book club friends, neighbors who'd shown kindness over the years. As we raised our glasses for a toast, I looked around the table at faces that lit up when they saw me, people who valued my opinions and enjoyed my company. To family, I said, raising my champagne. Not the family we're born into, but the family we choose to create. To Sophia, Helen responded, who taught us that love is about actions, not just words. To the woman who showed us that dignity and grace can triumph over cruelty, added Rachel. As I looked around that table, I realized I'd never been happier. My children had given me an unexpected gift when they told me they didn't want me in their lives. They'd forced me to discover what real family actually looked like. These people loved me for who I was, not what I could provide. They appreciated my presence rather than taking it for granted. They defended me when I was attacked and celebrated with me when I succeeded. My biological children had taught me that blood doesn't create family. Love does. Respect does. Kindness does. And I was surrounded by more family than I'd ever had before. 2 years had passed since my birthday revelation, and the silence from my biological children had become absolute. No more borrowed phones, no more desperate letters, no more legal challenges. They'd finally understood that I meant what I said when I told them our relationship was over. But I wasn't content to simply ignore them. I wanted to understand what my absence had done to their lives, how they were adapting to reality without my support. Through Harold's discreet inquiries and Helen's community connections, I learned that my children weren't just struggling financially. They were unraveling emotionally. David had completely fallen apart. The divorce from Susan had been brutal, with her claiming he'd deceived her about his earning potential. She'd been awarded primary custody and substantial alimony, payments David couldn't afford on his car salesman's salary. He declared bankruptcy, and the stress had triggered severe depression and anxiety. He was living in a studio apartment above a convenience store, working 60-hour weeks just to make basic expenses. But the psychological toll was worse than the financial one. David had always defined himself by his success, his connections, his ability to provide for his family. Without those things, he'd lost his sense of identity entirely. His former colleagues avoided him now. The friends who'd once enjoyed expensive dinners at restaurants I'd recommended no longer returned his calls. He'd discovered that most of his social circle had been built around business relationships that depended on my influence. Kathy's situation was equally devastating, but in different ways. She'd always been the controlling one, the daughter who'd managed family gatherings and coordinated celebrations. She'd seen herself as the responsible child. Without my financial support, she couldn't afford to host family events anymore. Without my social connections, she couldn't maintain the lifestyle that had made her feel important. But most crushing, she'd become a pariah in our community. Word had spread about the lawsuit she'd filed against me. People knew she'd tried to have her own mother declared mentally incompetent to access her money. The women who'd once competed for invitations to her dinner parties now whispered about her greed behind her back. Her marriage to Mark was hanging by a thread. He blamed her for their financial ruin, arguing that if she hadn't been so cruel to me, none of this would have happened. She blamed him for encouraging her cruelty by liking that message. Emily's collapse was perhaps the most complete. She'd always been the baby of the family, the one who'd gotten away with the most. She'd never developed real skills or independence, assuming her position as my youngest daughter guaranteed security. Without my financial support, she and Peter had been forced to move in with his parents, a humiliation that had triggered their own marital problems. Peter's parents had never liked Emily, seeing her as spoiled and entitled. Emily had tried to reconnect with old friends, but discovered most of her relationships had been built around expensive activities I'd funded. The women who'd joined her for spa days weren't interested in coffee dates she couldn't afford. But perhaps the most satisfying information was about their relationships with each other. The siblings who'd once been united in their entitlement had turned on each other completely. David blamed Kathy for starting the cruel birthday message. Kathy blamed Emily for not defending me. Emily blamed both of them for not apologizing quickly enough. They'd stopped speaking to each other entirely. The family group chat where they'd once coordinated demands for my money had been deleted. They spent holidays alone, never gathering as a family anymore. The isolation was complete. They'd lost not just their mother, but their siblings, their financial security, their social standing, and their sense of identity. Helen brought me updates during our afternoon tea sessions, though I never asked directly. "I saw Emily at the grocery store yesterday," she mentioned one day. She looked thin, tired. She was using coupons and checking prices carefully. Her cart was full of generic brands. How did she seem emotionally? Beaten down. She kept looking around nervously, like she was afraid of running into someone she knew. When she saw me, she practically ran to avoid talking. I felt no satisfaction in Emily's suffering, only a cold sense of justice being served. This was what happened when you treated love like a commodity and kindness like weakness. The beautiful irony was that my children had gotten exactly what they'd asked for. They'd wanted space from me, and I'd given them infinite space. They'd told me they were tired of me, and I'd removed myself completely. They'd called my love manipulative, and I'd stopped offering it. They were learning what life looked like without the mother they'd taken for granted for 40 years. Without my financial support, my social connections, my emotional availability, my willingness to solve their problems. They were discovering that the woman they dismissed as needy and manipulative had actually been the foundation upon which their entire adult lives had been built. And now that foundation was gone forever. I spent my evenings in my study, reading and listening to classical music, surrounded by photos of my chosen family and letters from charities that would inherit my wealth. I felt more peace than I'd experienced in decades. My biological children were learning that actions have consequences, that cruelty carries a price, and that some relationships, once broken, can never be repaired. They'd wanted independence from me. They'd achieved it. They just hadn't realized how expensive independence would be. 3 years after my birthday awakening, I decided it was time for the final act of our family drama. My children had learned to live without my money, my influence, and my presence. But I wanted to ensure they understood that this separation was permanent, that there would never be reconciliation, never restoration of what they'd thrown away. I spent weeks crafting 3 letters, one for each of my biological children. Not apologies, not explanations, but final statements that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The letters were works of art, each tailored to the specific character flaws of its recipient. Cold, precise, and absolutely devastating. Dear Kathy, I am writing to inform you that I will not be responding to any future attempts at communication from you or your family. This is not a negotiation. This is a final goodbye. You told me on my 64th birthday that you were tired of me and needed space. You have now had 3 years of space. I hope it has been everything you wanted. During those 3 years, I've watched you lose your home, your social standing, and your sense of identity. I've watched your marriage crumble under financial stress. I've watched your children struggle to understand why their mother's cruelty cost them their comfortable life. You seem to believe this is punishment, that I'm being vindictive. You're wrong. This is simply the natural consequence of your choices. You chose to prioritize your husband's approval over your mother's feelings. You chose to call my pain manipulation. You chose to sue me rather than apologize. Every difficulty you've faced has been the direct result of decisions you made freely. I didn't destroy your life, Kathy. I simply stopped protecting you from the consequences of your own character. You raised children who will remember that their mother chose cruelty over kindness when it mattered most. That is the legacy you created. Do not contact me again. You are no longer my daughter, and I am no longer your mother. Sophia Ruthell. Dear David, this letter serves as formal notice that our relationship is permanently severed. There will be no reconciliation, no future contact, no restoration of financial support. For 39 years, I enabled your irresponsibility, covered your debts, and opened doors you could never have opened yourself. I mistook this enabling for love. You mistook it for weakness. When you told me you were tired of me, you revealed who you really were underneath all my support, a man who saw his mother as an inconvenience, a burden, a source of money rather than a human being deserving respect. The depression and anxiety you've experienced aren't symptoms of my cruelty. They are symptoms of reality. You are finally experiencing life as the man you actually are, rather than the man my support allowed you to pretend to be. Your ex-wife was right to leave you. Your children are right to lose respect for you. Your former friends are right to avoid you. They all see what I should have seen years ago, that you are weak, selfish, and fundamentally incapable of gratitude. You will spend the rest of your life knowing that you had a mother who loved you unconditionally, and you threw that love away for temporary comfort. That knowledge will eat at you until the day you die. You are not my son. You are a stranger who happens to share my DNA. Sophia Ruthell. Dear Emily, I am writing to inform you that you are dead to me. Not metaphorically, not temporarily, but completely and permanently. You were my youngest child, the one I protected most, spoiled most, forgave most. I gave you everything and asked for nothing except basic human decency. On my birthday, when I expressed sadness about being forgotten, you responded that I was manipulative and needed boundaries. You supported your siblings' cruelty because it was easier than defending me. You spent 36 years taking my love for granted, assuming it would always be available no matter how you treated me. You were wrong. Your current circumstances, living with in-laws who despise you, working retail for minimum wage, watching your children lose respect for you, are not unfortunate accidents. They are the life you earned through your choices. You chose to value your siblings' approval over your mother's dignity. You chose temporary comfort over permanent relationships. You chose selfishness over gratitude. Your children will grow up knowing their mother cared more about avoiding confrontation than protecting their grandmother. That is how they will remember you, and that memory will shape how they treat you when you are old and vulnerable. I hope the space you wanted from me brings you everything you deserve. You are nothing to me now. Sophia Ruthell. I mailed the letters on a Tuesday morning, using certified mail to ensure delivery. Then I changed my phone number, closed my email accounts, and instructed Harold to return any future correspondence unopened. The finality was absolute. There would be no last-minute reconciliations, no deathbed forgiveness, no Christmas morning phone calls years from now. They would receive my letters, understand that our relationship was permanently over, and live with that knowledge forever. Helen found me in my garden that afternoon, deadheading roses. You seem peaceful today, Mrs. Ruthell, she observed. I am peaceful, Helen. I've finally finished the hardest work of my life. What work was that? Learning to love myself enough to stop loving people who didn't love me back. That evening, I hosted a dinner party for my chosen family. We celebrated not the end of my relationships with my biological children, but the completeness of the family I'd built to replace them. As we sat around my dining room table, sharing stories and laughter, I realized I'd never felt more content. These people valued my presence, appreciated my friendship, respected my opinions, and enjoyed my company. My biological children had taught me the difference between family and DNA. Family was what you built through love, respect, and mutual care. DNA was just a biological accident that meant nothing without character to support it. I'd spent 40 years trying to turn DNA into family. I'd finally learned that family was something you chose, not something you inherited. And I'd chosen well. The letters would arrive tomorrow, and my biological children would understand that their mother was gone forever. Not dead, but dead to them. They would live with that knowledge, understanding that some consequences are permanent, some damage cannot be repaired, and some people are exactly as dangerous as they appear when you finally push them too far. I was Sophia Ruthell, 67 years old, beautiful, dignified, and absolutely ruthless when it came to protecting my own peace. And I was finally completely free. 5 years have passed since my birthday awakening, and I sit in my study this October evening, reflecting on the woman I've become and the life I've built from the ashes of maternal disappointment. The house is quiet, but it's a peaceful quiet now, not the hollow silence of neglect I once endured. Helen is in the kitchen preparing tomorrow's meals for the dinner party I'm hosting, my chosen family gathering to celebrate another year of genuine love and mutual respect. My children never responded to my final letters. Perhaps they understood that any communication would be returned unopened. Perhaps they finally grasped that some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. Or perhaps they found it easier to tell themselves that their mother is the villain rather than examine their own choices. It doesn't matter. They are strangers to me now, and I am content with that arrangement. The community has watched our family drama with fascination and judgment. Some people whisper that I'm cold, unforgiving, a woman who chose money over family. They don't understand that I chose dignity over abuse, self-respect over enabling, genuine relationships over toxic obligations. Other people, the ones whose opinions actually matter, see the truth. They've watched me build a real family from scratch, surrounding myself with people who appreciate kindness rather than demanding it as their birthright. My will remains unchanged. Helen will receive $5 million and my personal jewelry collection. The Carters will receive $1 million each and the right to live in the guest house for life. My book club friends will share $2 million among them. The remaining $35 million will fund scholarships, medical research, and social programs. My biological children will receive exactly what they gave me. Nothing. Harold checks on me regularly, not because I need legal assistance, but because we've become genuine friends. Last month, he brought his granddaughter to meet me, a brilliant young woman starting medical school who reminds me what respectful children actually look like. She asks about you often, he told me. She says you're proof that older women can be powerful and independent. What do you tell her? I tell her that the most dangerous person in the world is someone who has nothing left to lose and everything to gain from the truth. I've received updates about my biological children through various channels, though I never ask directly. David remarried last year. A woman his own age who works as a nurse and has no patience for his self-pity. The marriage seems stable, probably because his new wife never knew him as anything other than a struggling car salesman. Kathy and Mark divorced 2 years ago. She's working as a school administrator now, living in a small apartment, driving a used car. Her children visit on alternate weekends, though the relationship is strained. They blame her for their family's downfall. Emily and Peter moved to another state, trying to rebuild away from the community that knows their story. Emily works as a pharmacy cashier. Peter drives for a delivery service. They're surviving, but they'll never thrive. The most satisfying aspect is that they've never recovered their relationship with each other. The siblings who once united in entitlement remain divided by resentment. Each still blames the others for their mother's abandonment. They learn too late that family bonds require more than shared DNA. They require respect, gratitude, kindness, and mutual support. Without those qualities, blood relationships become meaningless. I learned the same lesson, but I learned it in time to build something better. Tomorrow evening, my dining room will be filled with people who chose to love me and whom I chose to love in return. We'll share stories, laughter, and genuine affection. We'll celebrate not just my birthday, but the family bonds we've created through character rather than coincidence. Rachel and James will bring their new baby, whom they've asked me to be godmother to. Helen will unveil the photo album she's been creating to document our chosen family celebrations. My book club friends will present me with first editions inscribed with messages of appreciation and love. These people remember my birthday because they value our relationship. They respect my opinions because they've seen the wisdom that comes from experience. They enjoy my company because I bring something positive to their lives, and they bring something positive to mine. This is what real family looks like. Not perfect people, but people who choose to love each other despite imperfections. Not people who share genetics, but people who share values. Not people who tolerate each other out of obligation, but people who celebrate each other out of choice. My biological children taught me that love without respect is worthless, that kindness without appreciation becomes enabling, and that some people will always see generosity as weakness rather than strength. But they also taught me that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. Strong enough to walk away from people who treated me badly, even when those people shared my blood. Strong enough to build new relationships based on mutual respect rather than biological obligation. Strong enough to choose my own peace over their convenience. I am Sophia Ruthell, 69 years old, beautiful, dignified, and absolutely unrepentant about the choices I've made. I sleep peacefully every night in a home filled with love and respect. I wake every morning knowing that the people in my life value my presence rather than tolerate it. My biological children asked for space from me. I gave them infinite space, and in that space, I discovered who I really was underneath 40 years of maternal sacrifice. I was not born to beg for love. I was born to be cherished by people wise enough to recognize my worth. And now I am cherished by the family I chose and who chose me in return. Tomorrow I will celebrate another birthday surrounded by people who remember it because they remember me. Not my money, not my connections, not my usefulness, but me. That is all I ever wanted, and it took losing everything I thought I had to find everything I actually needed. Some women spend their golden years bitter about the children who disappointed them. I spend mine grateful for the awakening that taught me the difference between family and DNA, between love and enabling, between kindness and weakness. My children thought they were punishing me when they told me they were tired of me. Instead, they set me free. And freedom, I've discovered, is the most beautiful gift anyone can give or receive. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that you deserve relationships built on mutual respect and genuine love, then you understand why we created Reclaiming Your Peace After Pain. Life is too short to waste on people who take your kindness for granted. You deserve better, and it's never too late to demand it. Click the link below and start building the life and relationships you truly deserve. Your happiness matters, your peace matters, and your story isn't over.